Our next speaker is Graham Ross, our second tech speaker. Graham Ross is Managing Director of Kusaga Athletic and BlockTex. He was motivated to start his sustainable sportswear company, Kusaga Athletic, after learning the impact our clothing has on the environment. He went on to create the greenest t-shirt on the planet, which has just 1% of water used to make a regular cotton tee. Believing the textile industry needs to transition to a circular economy approach based on closed-loop sourcing, Graham recently founded BlockTex, which uses blockchain technology to address the problem of pre- and post-consumer textile waste. By the way, he has black belts in Zendo, Thai Karate and Muay Thai, so at drinks, be polite. A big welcome for Graham Ross.
Clicker there. Perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. So since blockchain's in the trough of disillusionment, I figured instead of talking about it, and as I'm an Australian, who wants to talk about the Bledisloe Cup for 20 minutes? Okay, we're really shit, and you guys are really good. I think that's kind of where we sit.
17 years now, not 20.
Yeah, it's very true. I did open up the can of worms, didn't I? I did open the... Yeah, you are, absolutely. So just as I said, I'm founder of BlockTex. We are a fashion technology platform with marketplace specialising in taking on the world's recycled textiles. Perfect. So blockchain has been described as a brilliant technology looking for a problem. So I'm not a blockchain expert, nor am I a blockchain coder, but I'm also not a mechanic, and I know how to drive a car. Technology is about the application, not necessarily about the technology, and I think that's what we've got to think about. We get confused with, we talk about circular economies confusing for people, mentioning blockchain, Bitcoin. Does anybody know what Bitcoin is? Okay, you've all got a rough idea what blockchain is? Absolutely. It's about the application and what we do with it, and that's what we've looked about from our perspective. So as James said, blockchain, it's the 3 T's: transparency, traceability and trust. And that's really important across a supply chain, but also you've got to look past that. Where should it be applied? So absolutely we've got RFID codes and other ways to identify things, but blockchain allows us to go further than that provenance. It allows us to track that single item, that single fibre, all the way through its life to post-consumer and what we might want to do with that. And that's really, really powerful. Blockchain is being used by many companies. It's not just Bitcoin. There's over 50 companies and a whole bunch of industries. And I'm sure you recognise most of those. So how are they using it? They're providing value across a bunch of streams. And these are really important. But what it does, it provides an opportunity for your business to work with your suppliers in an ecosystem that doesn't need a gatekeeper. You don't need government control. You don't need a bank. You just need an agreement between people that this is how you're going to, these are the rules of the game, and you use blockchain to make sure that we're all ticking the boxes. I mean, these sit in all businesses at the moment. Oops, sorry. So when I see circular economy and Bitcoin crossing over, I think we share 2 really common traits: a shared purpose and community behaviour. So a shared purpose, without an agreement between like-minded people within an ecosystem, nothing happens. So if you think about it from a blockchain point of view, you have a permissioned blockchain and you have a decentralised blockchain. So from a permissioned blockchain, that would be like my company with my suppliers, that we would have this walled garden of blockchain and we would agree how we would work and we'd be able to track things. So that would be a shared purpose. But from a community behaviour point of view, which is what we're building with BlockTex, is it's an open source blockchain. People can see where things are going. You can understand where all the flows of the textiles are going around the world. But there's got to be some rules, and you've got to have a bunch of people who agree that they're going to behave right. Because like anything, if you put garbage into the blockchain, you've got a garbage blockchain. So there's a purpose. So this is where I find with blockchain and circular economy really key shared purpose, and this is where I see we can not only, what's been mentioned before, not only can we change the way we do business, but we can really start to change mindsets. Oh. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of examples that are already working in the marketplace. So Bex 360 have applied blockchain across the supply chain from coffee bean to consumer. What they've been able to do is verify that the single origin that we're all buying at the coffee shop that's claimed as single origin is actually single origin. But what they've also been able to do is to come back into those villages and give them a proof of concept and track the way their business is done. So they can verify that they're not getting skimmed by the middleman all the way along as the beans travel across the countries. Everledger is probably one of the most famous blockchains. They're focused on diamonds. So the interesting about diamonds, obviously provenance is really important, but it's a really old industry. And so often the traders in the gem, they do business with people they know because it's the only way they know they're going to get the right diamonds, they know they're going to get the clarity. Blockchain helps to open up that marketplace for more players. So people are able to trade with more players because they can verify that this person is a trustworthy person. I like the Brooklyn microgrids. This is a bunch of households who've got solar panels on their house. And they're sharing the power that they're gathering. But not only that, they're funneling it back into the main grid. So they're actually selling the energy that they're making. And the way they track that down is that they apply blockchain across that so they know that they've sent a bunch of energy onto the grid. So then they can say, well, it cost the energy provider X for that amount of stuff, so they can validate their transactions. And this all happens. But not only that, they can look at this real time, and so they can adjust the amount of energy going away from them or back to them. And provenance is really interesting. They teamed up with Greenpeace a few years ago to track the provenance of a tuna caught in Indonesia all the way through to it ending up on your supermarket can. What's important from the perspective of that industry is fishing industry notorious for overfishing, fraud, social impact. So by using the blockchain, like this, you can track the supply chain. So just in case you guys haven't seen something like this, so standard supply chain diagram, but what you can see is where the physical and digital match, and then it's recorded as a digital file at the bottom. And you go all the way down. And what they've done nicely is they've got an app at the end. So as a consumer, you can see, you can track where your products come, you can have an interaction with that brand, and it's a nice dinner conversation. Have you seen my tune? So cryptocurrency. So we all know Bitcoin. What's really interesting with these guys is they're applying cryptocurrency to the circular economy, to the environment. So Earth Dollar's an interesting brand. They've worked out that they're selling a token, so basically a cryptocurrency, and that value is tied to natural resources. So so as the natural resources are looked after, theoretically, the value goes up. What I should say is these are really early stage, and as a disclaimer, this is not financial advice. Definitely not. EcoCoin, they're applying blockchain, their cryptocurrency, into events. So an event space. So it helped to make events more sustainable. Rather than spending the money in the events, they're getting the participants to play their part. So if you ride to that event, you get several tokens. Those tokens you're able to spend for coffee, for food, for your accommodation. Within the event, there's ways for you to earn those tokens. And theoretically, you could actually take some money back as you leave. And then finally, Viridium's working with IBM. They're tokenizing carbon credits. And it's completely outside of my scope of understanding, but I think carbon credits are quite complex. And so they're trying to make it a bit more like a trading marketplace. So if there's anybody out here who understands carbon credits, come and tell me about it later. So like I said, it's about changing mindsets. What's really important is that we think of blockchain, we think about circular economy as collaboration, not competition. And the only way we're going to move things forward is we have to collaborate on a whole bunch of levels, whether it's small or large, but we have to open those conversations up. And I think by having the mindset of an environment like a blockchain or a shared economy, we can break down some of those barriers. Okay, so we're going to go down now. So, remember when you used to have a summer season and a winter season? Like now some brands are dropping 10 styles a year. So currently, the textile industry are making 100 billion garments a year. 100 billion garments. And we're recycling 1% of that. So it's a lot of garments. So what we've got is we've got a problem. We've got a bunch of garments coming in. We've got us as consumers buying them. They're either sitting in our wardrobes, or the brands aren't selling them, so they're going to landfill, or we're donating our clothes to charities. And so this is the next problem that blockchain can start to. Burberry got busted this year, and I'm not picking on them, but they're a good example. They burnt 28 million pounds of clothes this year. 28 million pounds to protect their brand. Over the last 5 years, they've burnt more than 100 million pounds of clothing to protect their brand. If they thought about it from this perspective of a blockchain and looking at where they start with their fabrics and materials and where they could go when they decommissioned, getting rid of their brands, nobody would know. We wouldn't do that. I didn't want to pick on them, but I find the bit where the energy generated by burning the clothes was a justification. So, 4 years ago, I didn't know anything about the textile industry and I didn't want to make a t-shirt. In that last 4 years, we've made 4 sustainable fabrics with my previous company, and I've grown to love this industry that I found myself in. What's been interesting in my journey is I constantly ask my business partner, Adrian, why do you do it that way? And he goes, that's because we've always done it that way. And so all these questions kept coming up, and I had the opportunity to see blockchain applied to a supply chain in Coca-Cola in Australia. And I had the opportunity to understand what it would be like to come into a large organisation and try and make a cultural change, but a technology change as well. And then I came back into my supply chain, which was really clean. Like, we're a small business. I've been to all my factories all over the world. I arrive, they go, hi Graham. I sit on the factory floor, I ask everyone, what do you do? How does that work? Cool, and it's wonderful. So applying blockchain for transparency across my business was overkill. It's like putting a V8 in a Mini. Where I saw the opportunity was looking at the entire textile industry from the perspective, what if everything we considered as waste was actually a resource and had value? And what would it look like how would we be able to track that value all the way through the supply chain into the consumer, the post-consumer donated to the charity, but then also what are the opportunities for that fibre post-clothing? So I went around basically everybody I knew in the industry and I said, I've got this idea. Can you tell me I'm an idiot and I'll go back and sell t-shirts? And they went, oh, this is really great. Can we help? I went, oh, okay. So I had to start to narrow down where my focus was. And so I did a bit more research. Now in Australia, we pretty much donate our clothes. If you know, whether they're old or new, you donate it to charity. The charities at the moment in Australia only sell about 10 to 20% of all that's donated. Right? And my country exports 94 million kilograms of textiles each year to the rest of the world. So what happens is these poor charities cost them millions of dollars each year to operate for the clothes that we donate. Somebody comes with a big container, they put all the clothes in and it's shipped to another country, which is either worn or ends up in landfill, but definitely decimates the textile industry within that country. So they seemed like the perfect place to start. So I went to a charity and I said, you know, what happens with, and this was explained to me, and I said, so what happens after you send it to another country? And they said, we don't know. And what was great about it, they said, we need to know. So we're currently doing a pilot program with this particular charity. I've got a box of clothes and I'm videoing it. I've arrived and got the box of clothes from the charity, and it's a massive undertaking for these guys. I don't know if you guys have ever been to some of these sorting areas. Like, there's just clothes and clothes and clothes, and these people are completely overrun to try and sort what the hell the clothes into the stuff they can sell, let alone the stuff that might have value. So I said, give me a box of clothes. I went and found somebody who had a shredder, and we tried a few shredders. We've done some shredding. In the meantime, I'd rung up the Technology Institute in Australia, CSIRO, and said, I want to shred some old clothes and I want to turn it into fibre and turn to fabric. Can you do that? And they went, Yeah, okay, let's do that. So we're currently at the spinning process, and we've tracked everything along the blockchain and understanding the methodology of how this might be able to be scaled around the world. What's exciting for me is we're working on a closed loop system. So old clothes, identified of which fibre, shredded, turned into a fibre, made into a fabric. We're then going to put that out and do a transaction on our marketplace, which is underpinned by blockchain, soon to be released. And then we're going to turn into a t-shirt. Now, my theory is, from those discarded clothes, if we go down this process and we turn that into a t-shirt, then that charity has got a whole range of recycled clothes that they could use as a revenue stream. So we're closing the loop within that environment. And that is so powerful. The conversation I had with the charities, they can't believe that's possible, that we can do that. And all it took was a bunch of calls to a bunch of people to say, can we do this? And so I think one of the things that I've been, it's wonderful we all talk about things, and there's lots of great leaders, but what we need is more doers. We need more people, just like James said, just kind of getting out there with an idea. It's like, this is what I think, and finding people with a shared purpose who say, I like that, I'll have a go with that. And then we also need, importantly, governments to support these ideas, to put in a couple of dollars to help move that, put in some dollars or open some doors within industries to open those supply chains to make things happen. So blockchain, we've already established that we're at the trough of disillusionment. I'm shattered. It's all downhill from here. But where I get to is, for me, blockchain is an amazing opportunity if we put it in the right spot. If we put it in the wrong spot, it's completely wasted. But where I see it, I look back to the 90s, so I'm old enough to know the pre-internet days. And I remember the internet came in and it was like, wow, this is thing called internet. It's got to do all these things. And remember, I was thinking, like, it was these fuzzy screens, and it was scary, and I didn't understand it. And all these people were talking these funny language, and I said, how is that ever going to apply to me? But now, then I went through the process of hearing about circular economy and cradle to cradle, and hearing all those things, and people going, it all seemed fuzzy. And now when I explain to people, they kind of go, how does that work again? But now we're at blockchain. And blockchain's at that stage. It's a little fuzzy. It's a little kind of trying to find its place. But I think, like the internet, and I hope with circular economy and cradle to cradle, we just need to give blockchain a bit more time. And if we do that, and if we give it some stuff that we can try stuff out and we support it, then I think we can actually make some difference. So I'm going for, I'm not at the trough of disillusionment. I'm at the hell yeah. Thank you.